Bill aimed to counter an impending travel ban reintroduced last week in Congress. The National Origin-Based Anti-Discrimination for Non-Immigrants or No Ban Act is an attempt to prevent travel bans on people of Islamic faith or any other religious group.
Tonight, Beth Warden breaks down how a travel ban might affect South Dakotas.
In 2017, executive orders prohibited travel from predominantly Muslim countries or refugees entering from those countries. That order is expected to be re-implemented within days.
A dangerous moment that we're in, and one that all Americans need to be wary of and need to start paying attention to.
Proponents of a travel ban believe protecting the country by heavily controlling the borders and entry is essential to citizen safety. Others believe the ban will go too far.
Make the immigrant communities, particularly our community, suspect, and does put a target on us.
International civil rights organization Civicus is adding the United States to its watch list of 5 countries. The concern is possible faltering civic freedoms based on recent executive orders.
And those individuals are likely to be targeted for removal based on their First Amendment protected activity.
South Dakota has over 2,000 international students, spending over $40,000 annually. It's just a fraction of the international student population nationwide.
Students are considering leaving for Canada or Australia, which is a great loss to our intellectual communities. Universities that heavily rely on their research and teaching contributions.
Those who have obtained U.S. citizenship from a banned country worry about how to have visits with their family abroad.
What we're seeing is a chipping away at our rights and a taking away of the rights of folks in this country, citizens or not.
With a growing number of those of the Muslim faith in South Dakota, the hope is they will be embraced with acceptance and peace, especially during this holy time of Ramadan. In Sioux Falls, Beth Warden, Dakota News Now.